All right, we have this breaking news just into our newsroom. Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi has announced she will not seek re-election in 2026. The California Democrat is largely considered to be one of the most consequential legislators of our time. Nancy Pelosi had led Democrats in the House for a number of years, and Nancy Pelosi's fingerprints you can find on major legislation that impacts the lives of Americans everywhere, from the Affordable Care Act to the infrastructure bill, as well as many other key components of law in the country. Nancy Pelosi making this announcement a short time ago is 85 years old and says she will not seek re-election. We do know that when this, by the way, is the moment Nancy Pelosi became the first female Speaker of the House back in 2008. And this would cap what it has been 4 decades of a remarkable career of leadership, as Nancy Pelosi has used her role as a congresswoman representing a district in San Francisco, and her background as a fundraiser and as someone who was able to be an activist for many liberal policies, to propel her not just to the House, but to Speaker of the House, becoming not just the first woman in that role, but she was also the first person representing California to be Speaker of the House, and the first Italian American as well. Her political career began, you could say, as a child. Her father was the mayor of Baltimore and then represented his district in Congress. And Nancy Pelosi was first walking the halls of Congress as a child, and now has just announced today she will not seek re-election next year, bringing an end to her remarkable and consequential career. We now have some sound from Nancy Pelosi making this announcement moments ago.
I want you, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know I will not be seeking re-election to Congress. With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service as your proud representative. As we go forward, my message to the city I love is this: San Francisco, know your power. We have made history, we have made progress, we have always led the way. And now we must continue to do so by remaining full participants in our democracy and fighting for the American ideals we hold dear. In doing so, we ensure that our city shines on as a beacon of hope, justice, and peace for the country and for generations to come. After all, San Francisco is the greatest city on earth with the most extraordinary people on earth, and a place that I will always believe is heaven on earth. Thank you, San Francisco, for trusting me to be your voice in Congress. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
House Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi there announcing to people in San Francisco that she will not seek re-election and will effectively bring an end to her multi-decade congressional career, one in which really helped shape liberal policies across the United States. CBS News Congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins us from Capitol Hill with details on this, and I would assume, Nikole, eventually we'll get reaction, but help us understand how Nancy Pelosi reached this significant decision.
Well, it certainly was a decision that was months in the making. And look, Nancy Pelosi very rarely shows her cards. So even in talking to a lot of her colleagues here on Capitol Hill, people she is extremely close to, many of them told me they didn't know what she would ultimately decide, that she was keeping this very close to the vest. In fact, just within the last 2 weeks or so, I asked Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who in essence succeeded Nancy Pelosi as a leader father. She had served as a mentor to him. And even he told me that he had not had any conversations with her about whether she should retire or seek re-election when there was speculation building about what she might do. But he did call her a legendary member of Congress, a legendary public servant, and acknowledge that if she had decided to run again, she would have won easily. Obviously, Jeffries is someone who is now looking to try to win back the majority in the House, and that is something that Nancy Pelosi is knows intimately well in terms of, as you mentioned earlier, fundraising, coalition building. So this is a loss from that standpoint, but certainly many Democratic operatives see her seat as a safe blue seat. There are already a number of candidates who have announced a run for that particular seat. So it will be interesting to see how that race evolves, and or if, others get into the race now that Nancy Pelosi has made this announcement. But she is certainly revered among Democrats, both in the House and Senate, who certainly all of those colleagues wishing her well on this day.
And Nikole, I know that recently Pelosi had referred to Hakeem Jeffries as potentially the first Black Speaker of the House, so possibly hinting at where she sees leadership moving in the future. We know that she's supported his current role, but for viewers who really don't understand what happens in Congress and how it works behind the scenes, explain the role of a Speaker of the House, and more specifically, why Nancy Pelosi seemed so perfect for it and so effective at it.
Well, look, I mean, this is someone who has served in Congress since 1987 for decades, really, and who ascended the ranks and, really kind of ruled with an iron fist or a velvet glove, depending on how you might put it. I mean, when there were big pieces of legislation that required a vote, she found a way to muscle the Democratic caucus to line up behind whatever legislation might be coming to the floor, and she rarely would put anything on the floor if she did not have the vote. So, where she was most instrumental, perhaps one defining part of her legacy, if you will, was the passage of the Affordable Care Act, which was no easy feat, both in the House and the Senate. But she was the one who tried to shepherd and usher that through. And I must say, Errol, it's pretty fascinating to watch, when you watch her leadership up close like that. Now in this moment, after she has left the speakership these last few years, where she has returned to just being Representative Nancy Pelosi and is just an everyday member and goes to the caucus meetings and, gives speeches on the floor just as any other member would do, as she should do. But, she does not walk around with this air of still being speaker, or I did this when I was speaker. She has really assumed her role as an ordinary member of Congress, even after all that she has accomplished, not only once, but twice, serving in the speaker role.
And she has been a fierce and successful fundraiser. She has admitted that this type of role is not for the faint of heart, encouraging other Democrats and other people interested in politics to really think about your why you would fight for certain issues, why you would do this day in and day out, why you would sign up for the criticism from the opposite side. Republicans have spent tens of millions over the decades on attack ads against Nancy Pelosi. One of the cornerstones of her leadership, though, has been a counterbalance to President Trump during his first administration. She wasn't too shy in standing up to him in the Oval Office when it came to important bills. How do you think she was so effective in doing that? Because, her husband was also attacked recently at his San Francisco home. It has cost her quite a lot personally.
Yeah, that's right. And certainly something that impacted her quite a bit. I remember not too long after that incident occurred involving Paul Pelosi, when an intruder entered their home and hit him over the head with a hammer. She was very emotional here on Capitol Hill about that. And obviously this comes in this heightened environment of political violence that we continue to see. But look, she also was one to not mince her words, or her actions for that matter, particularly when it comes to President Trump. In many cases, she often did not even refer to him by his name. And just this week in another interview referred to him as a vile creature. And of course, many will not forget the time at the State of the Union where she literally ripped up his address right behind him after he delivered that State of the Union address in his first term. So she certainly has worn her emotions, but also her statements sometimes on her sleeve. And again, I think that is just kind of the way that she is. She can be very gentle and compassionate, but also very fierce and, not afraid to speak up and stand up for what she believes in or what she disagrees with. So I think that is kind of the tone and the tenor that she has taken in particular with this president. And certainly, trying to portray strength, but also, like I said, compassion at the same time when it comes to, standing up for working families and women and children, which is something that has always been very near and dear to her heart.
That's right. It was during President Trump's first State of the Union address where Nancy Pelosi did rip up the speech right behind him afterwards. Not once, not twice, but a number of times. She also introduced articles of impeachment against Donald Trump in 2020 and 2021 due to the insurrection. So considering this is months in the making, Nikole, Nancy Pelosi announcing she won't seek re-election next year, how is she reading the political table? Because Democrats had a strong showing in races on Tuesday, from Prop 50 in California to the races in New Jersey and in Virginia, as well as the New York mayoral race. So what does the timing mean for Democrats moving into next year's midterms?
Well, look, I think this is someone who definitely wants to go out on top, right? And she had made clear that she would make her decisions known about her political future once this Proposition 50 ballot initiative got over the finish line. She invested a lot of resources, a lot of energy in trying to make sure that that initiative passed, this redistricting initiative that basically would net Democrats a few additional seats in response to the redistricting moves that we saw by Republicans in Texas. And so she worked hand in glove with Governor Gavin Newsom to try to get that passed, which it did. It's now facing litigation, but still, Pelosi sees it as a victory nonetheless. Was at a watch party just the other night as those results were coming in San Francisco. And, we also talked to the head of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar, who also told us that she was really instrumental in trying to get that initiative passed, provided a lot of support for the entire delegation. So much so he simply referred to her this way, Errol, as the GOAT, the greatest of all time, is what he told us specifically about not only her career, but again, this effort to get Prop 50 passed. And ultimately, she has made clear that, yes, she would like to see Democrats win back the House of Representatives, which would potentially allow Hakeem Jeffries to become the first ever Black Speaker of the House, which is something certainly Pelosi would champion, particularly given how much she has shared with Jeffries over the years, the advice and mentorship that she has provided to him. So it would kind of be a full circle moment, if you will, if Democrats were able to reclaim the majority next year. Certainly the results of the election have really made a lot of Democrats feel like that is attainable, that is possible, although we are still a full year out, so a lot can happen between now and then. But I think she feels that Democrats are certainly on the right trajectory and that this was the right time to make this announcement.
A remarkable career coming to a close here soon. Nikole Killion with the latest for us on Capitol Hill on the news of Nancy Pelosi not seeking re-election. Nikole, thank you. Let's jump over to CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang now, who is at the White House with the latest on this. Weijia, this news just broke in the past 15 minutes or so. Some Washington insiders may have known it was coming, though. Has there been any reaction from President Trump? And if not, what might we expect?
So far, Errol, nothing yet from the president, but certainly there is no love lost between him and House Speaker Emerita Pelosi, considering their relationship and considering when she was Speaker of the House and he was president for the first time, they had a lot of famous moments of tension that played out in public, not only the one that you and Nikole were just talking about, during which she ripped up the text of his State of the Union address, which followed, by the way, a handshake snub because she tried to shake the president's hand on the floor there before the infamous rip. And it appeared that the president refused to shake her hand. But also, Errol, there was a government shutdown that unfolded, surprise, surprise, back in 2018, 2019. And they were supposed to have closed-door meetings between Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer with the president at the time here, Trump, to talk about negotiations because the administration was demanding more funding to build a border wall at the southern border with Mexico. But the president invited cameras into that meeting, and none of them held back, Errol. You probably remember they fought. The voices were raised. It was very heated and passionate. And of course, that's just one of many tense moments between these two leaders. Despite all that, they were able to work together on some pretty big and important pieces of legislation. Remember, they got the country through the coronavirus pandemic together. And so they do have a very rich history, to say the least. But so far, the president has not commented on her retiring.
You've just reminded me, Weijia, that's right. When Nancy Pelosi, I guess, surprised that cameras were invited into that Oval Office meeting, still stood her ground, still stood up to President Trump. And you're also right that even after moments like that, the two still had to work together to some degree to get things done. So as we stand by for the president's reaction to this, what does it do to the political landscape moving forward to next year's midterms, if we can even see that far just yet? A change like this, someone on the Democratic side who has been such a staunch leader of liberal ideals, what might this change mean?
Well, it's notable that Pelosi said she was going to wait until after the California vote of Prop 50 to announce this decision, to really make this decision formal. And of course, that decision will change the landscape of California and the representation here on Capitol Hill, which is something that President Trump is already fighting back against. So it's also notable, Errol, that also on election night, Zohran Mamdani, who is a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, won to become the mayor of the biggest city in the country. So a lot of people are wondering what this means for the party going forward. And it's almost symbolic that she is leaving after that race because, as we have been reporting, Mamdani is clearly not just a local politician. After that speech, it would be hard to argue he doesn't have bigger ambitions and that he is now a leader of the Democratic Party, which is very different from what some in the Democratic Party envision going forward, because there's still a bit of an identity crisis there about exactly how they're going to reach out to voters to really get excitement across the board so they don't suffer another tremendous loss. So this departure really is an opportunity for perhaps the young guard for new leadership in California, although San Francisco is pretty defined in terms of its politics there, but it certainly creates new space for leaders to emerge, Errol.
That's right. New space for leadership of the Democratic caucus emerging after Nancy Pelosi announces she's retiring and won't seek re-election next year. Weijia Jiang at the White House with all the latest for us. Weijia, thank you.